Part 5. Initially, this had been a competition for all the prominent corporations and families in the name of charity. But with Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson's actions, the event had returned to its original intentions. The children were all sobbing in the field. Some children hugged Yvette Larson, pouring their souls out about how frightened they were when sleeping at night without their mothers. When Yvette Larson finished putting all the scarves on the children, everyone else understood the situation. They had lost. No matter how many gifts or how expensive their gifts were, it didn't matter. Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson had won something precious hearts. When they returned, Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson stood there awkwardly. Quince Larson had been clamoring about telling their grandpa to kick his cousin out from the CEO position and even kick Yvette Larson's family out of the Larson family. Now, Yvette Larson had done the company and the family a huge favor. Quince Larson, what were you saying earlier? Shall we go to Grandpa and let him know about this? Although Yvette Larson had been on the stage earlier, she had heard her cousin's words. To be honest, it was mostly Finn Taylor's efforts that had led to this success. Finn Taylor hadn't known about this event. Yvette Larson had simply asked him what he thought orphans would need the most. Then, Finn Taylor had told her some things, leading to this idea. How dare you treat my husband this way when he's the one who made this day a success? Even I, Yvette Larson, wouldn't be so shameless. Yvette Larson, what are you trying to do? Nothing much. If you don't want Grandpa to find out about this, you'd better apologize to Finn Taylor. Upon hearing that, Quince Larson stared at her in disbelief. You're asking me to apologize to that good for nothing? You'd better kill me instead. Quince Larson's tone was firm. He would never apologize to Finn Taylor. Even if Yvette Larson brought the matter up to their grandpa, he would never apologize. Quince Larson felt that his grandpa would stand on his side without any qualms even if he were to find out about it. He was the eldest grandson of the Larson family and the face of the Larson family. The entire Larson family would be humiliated if he apologized to a mere matrilocal son-in-law. Quince Larson, let's make a bet. Finn Taylor spoke up. What do you want to bet on? Grandpa assigned Yvette and you 2 different portions of this event. This first session went pretty smoothly, and we won, but I don't have a favorable view of your second session. If I can turn the tides in the second session and win the Larson family and the Larson Corporation the Best Charitable Organization title, what will you do? Quince Larson smirked, thinking that he was being ridiculous. Finn Taylor, you won the first session because of some dirty tricks. What are you planning to do in the second session? Give them more scarves. You can't make use of their emotions too many times. We can make a bet if you want. Let's make a bet. Whoever loses has to crawl under the crotch of the other person. Quince Larson was full of confidence. What I've prepared is great for kids. Besides, even if I don't win, Finn Taylor has to win. There were 2 conditions to winning this bet. No matter how he looked at it, he had a greater chance of winning. Deal. Yvette Larson felt a little uneasy upon hearing their bet. She looked at her husband and asked softly, can you really do it? Yvette Larson had already given out all the gifts she had prepared, but Finn Taylor hadn't brought anything. In that case, he was sure to lose the bet. No, unless you support me. Yvette Larson rolled her eyes at her spouse. Don't spout nonsense. Do you have confidence? If you don't, you'd better refuse the bet now. Finn Taylor stretched out his hands. Do you have lipstick? Yvette Larson was stunned, wondering what use Finn Taylor had for it. But seeing that she had won the first round by a landslide, she reached into her pocket and placed her lipstick in Finn Taylor's hand. All right, I'm confident now. What are you trying to do? Finn Taylor, I already said that I'd definitely chase you out into the streets for 3 months if you dared to screw today's event up and embarrass the Larson family. Supporting him was one thing, but she was still the Larson Corporation's CEO and had to consider the company's reputation. If Finn Taylor dared to do anything funny, she would definitely keep him in check. Finn Taylor smiled but didn't utter a word. Very quickly, the second round of the competition began. Each family took out the presents that they had prepared. It would be accusing Quince Larson to say that he hadn't put in any effort. He had prepared quite decent gifts. He had prepared game consoles for the boys and stickers and dolls for the girls. They were indeed things that were precious to kids. Unfortunately, these were all too common. Almost every corporation and family had prepared these items too. As such, there weren't many children who had chosen the Larson family's gifts. Yvette Larson glanced around and found that most children were in front of the Fleming family's gifts. The Fleming family had gone all out this time. She had stolen a glance earlier and had realized that all the toys were imported and couldn't be found within the country. This event was held annually, and the children had already had their fun with domestic toys. Thus, these toys no longer attracted them. But the imported toys that the Fleming family had brought were novel. In an instant, all of the children were attracted over. When Yvette Larson walked over to take a look, Melissa Hans had ridiculed her, saying that the Larson family had no better cards to play than the children's emotions. See, they had won so easily in the second round. There were only 10 minutes left to the end of the second round. The Larson family was one of the families with the fewest children around. Finally, anxiety could be seen on Quince Larson's face. Can you really draw the kids over? Let's try it. Finn Taylor walked up to a child standing in front of the Larson family's gifts and retrieved Yvette Larson's lipstick from his pocket. Stick your hand out, I'll draw you a watch. The girl stretched her arm out, allowing Finn Taylor to draw on it with the lipstick. Yvette Larson had to resist the urge to slap her husband to death at this sight. This is my lipstick, it is my life. How can he treat it as a crayon? I want a watch too. Children standing by the side were getting jealous and tried asking Finn Taylor. Queue up behind her. Soon, the children formed an orderly queue. This attracted even more children from the other booths. And then, even more children started heading to the Larson family's booth. Soon, chaos broke out in Spottingwood Kindergarten. Countless children dropped the toys in their hands, while others rushed toward the booth with toys still in their hands. They were all headed toward the Larson family. Of course, Finn Taylor did more than drawing watches for the children, that would have been boring. As such, he drew cats on some of the children's faces, butterflies on others, and tigers. There was nothing within the children's imagination that Finn Taylor couldn't draw. Ding dong, with the ring of a bell, the second round officially ended. All the children of Spottingwood Kindergarten were queued up before the Larson family's booth. It was clear who had won. The Larson family had won both rounds of the competition. Naturally, the Larson Corporation and Larson family had won the Best Charitable Organization title. Of course, all credit went to Finn Taylor. Finn Taylor didn't stop drawing just because the bell had rung. He remained there, seriously drawing for the children. Quince Larson left in a huff. Eleanor Larson obviously wasn't going to remain there to be humiliated. As such, she left as well. Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson returned to the Larson Corporation with the award in hand, but what greeted them was a message from Joseph Larson's secretary. They were to head to the conference room right away. For some reason, Yvette Larson felt that something was amiss. The moment they entered the conference room, Yvette Larson saw her grandpa sitting at the head of the table while Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson stood behind him. Quince Larson looked at them smugly. Grandpa, here is the Best Charitable Organization award. Yvette Larson placed the plaque on the table, but Joseph Larson didn't even spare it a glance. He slammed his fist down on the table, causing the mugs to fall onto the ground. Clang! The mugs shattered into pieces with a chilling clang. Yvette Larson, I handed the company to you and kicked Quince Larson out of the CEO position to give it to you, and this is how you repay me. Joseph Larson was infuriated. Yvette Larson was confused. I don't think that I've made any mistakes. In fact, I have even won the competition for the company, improving our reputation. Why is Grandpa in such a fury? Who's he? He's just a matrilocal son-in-law and a piece of trash. How could you listen to him as a CEO? It's just pure luck that you managed to win this competition. What if you lost? Have you ever thought of the consequences? You're a girl. The Larson Corporation will eventually end up in Quince's hands. I don't expect you to make great contributions as a CEO, but you should know not to make any mistakes at the very least. But what have you done? You've wasted my efforts in cultivating you. How could you trust him to make such an important decision for the company? Twice. Yvette Larson, from now on, you'll be demoted to Deputy CEO. Quince will continue being the CEO. You'll still be in charge of the Xander Corporation project. Don't you dare threaten me with that. If you don't handle it well, I'll kick your whole family out of the Larson family, Joseph Larson shouted fiercely. Toward the end, he was already out of breath. Yvette Larson, look what you've done. Eleanor Larson caressed her grandpa's back to calm him down. By the side, Quince Larson glared at his cousin as though she had committed a grave crime. Yvette, oh Yvette, it doesn't matter to me, even if you want to be stubborn and fight with me for power. If you really want to, I can hand over the CEO position to you. I can even hand over the position of successor to the Larson family to you. But the Larson Corporation is Grandpa's life. Can you really bear to ruin it? Piece of trash, it's you. You're the one who angered Grandpa. You'd better kneel down and apologize to him. Yvette Larson's fist was clenched tightly into a fist. She was fuming. She had to suppress the urge to slap Quince Larson in the face, but she knew that her grandpa's condition would definitely worsen if she did so. Thud, Finn Taylor knelt down. So as not to drag Yvette Larson nor make her do anything foolish, Finn Taylor knelt down without any regrets. It was all because Yvette Larson had held his hand when she had been fuming earlier on. This is the first time Yvette Larson has ever held his hand in 3 years. Her icy heart is finally starting to melt. It's because of me that she has suffered so much today. As a man, Finn Taylor knelt down with no regrets to prevent Yvette Larson from being humiliated any further. The corners of Quince Larson's lips curled up mockingly as he saw Finn Taylor kneel down, but he finally remained silent. He walked out of the conference room with Eleanor Larson, who was supporting their grandpa. Only after everyone left did Yvette Larson help her husband up. Then, she leapt into Finn Taylor's embrace. "I'm sorry for making you go through this." Finn Taylor smiled. "You care about me." Yvette Larson didn't answer him. "Come on, let's go home." Yvette Larson held his hand and walked out of the company under the keen gazes of everyone. Yvette Larson retrieved the key to the CEO's car from her pocket and flung it onto the car. Since she was no longer the CEO, she was naturally not going to drive the car either. Why, you can't bear to part with it. She would be lying if she denied it. Apart from her grandpa's car, this was the best car she had ever sat in her entire life. But she was a stubborn person. Since it wasn't hers, she wasn't going to insist on having it. "I'll buy you a car that's 100 times, 1,000 times 7, 10,000 times more expensive than this one. How's that?" Finn Taylor drew a huge circle in front of Yvette Larson. Yvette Larson sneered. "Why don't you say that you'll buy that Rolls-Royce Phantom we saw at Pacific Heights for me? If you like it, I'll drive it over for you right away." "Stop boasting. You're such a bad guy. Do you think I'll believe you?" Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson argued playfully along the way. However, Finn Taylor wasn't boasting about the Rolls-Royce Phantom, it was indeed his. He could drive it over at any time without even lifting a finger, but he gave up on that idea for fear of scaring his wife. When the couple returned home, they were greeted by Frances Larson and Linda James's fierce gazes. "You guys still dare to return home? Why don't you just die?" Linda James hit Finn Taylor with the broom in her hands. "Come in." Linda James dragged Yvette Larson into the house. Thud. With that, Finn Taylor was locked out of the house. Finn Taylor sat at the door and lit a cigarette. "Am I in the wrong?" "No, not at all." "Then, is Yvette Larson wrong? Is Frances Larson wrong? Or is Linda James wrong?" "No, none of them are wrong. It's my parents who are to be blamed. It is because of their bias that I was forced out of Peregrine Hall. They are the ones who forced me to go into hiding and act as a good-for-nothing, matrilocal son-in-law here. Although he was capable of doing anything, he could do nothing more than endure the suffering now. However, even a saint would have an outburst eventually. Peregrine Hall, Joseph Larson, Quince Larson, Eleanor Larson, just you wait." Before he finished his cigarette, Finn Taylor heard a quarrel breaking out within the house. By the sounds, he guessed that his wife was trying to open the door to let him in, but Frances Larson and Linda James refused. "Hey, Yvette Larson has truly suffered in the past few years she has been with me." But by now, Finn Taylor had already started to let go of everything. Eventually, Yvette Larson managed to open the door. "Mom, Finn Taylor didn't do anything wrong. It's Grandpa who's biased. We won the award. However, not only did he not reward us for it, but he even took away my position. If you want to blame someone, you'd better go look for Grandpa." "Why are you venting your temper on Finn Taylor?" Yvette Larson picked up her spouse's hand and dragged him into the house. Linda James flung everything around her onto the ground in a rage, turning the whole house upside down. Just then, Frances Larson's phone rang. He was stunned when he looked at it. It was Franklin Larson, his second brother, and Quince Larson's father. "We haven't been in contact for a few years at the very least. Could it be that he is calling to show off? But that doesn't seem like Franklin Larson's style." No matter what the call was for, Frances Larson decided to pick up the phone. "Frances Larson, look at what your daughter's done. Your daughter got into a fight with Dad, and he was so angry that he went into cardiac arrest. He's been sent to Independence Hospital for emergency surgery. Frances Larson, I'm telling you that I'll definitely make you pay if anything happens to Dad." Click. The call was ended. Frances Larson's phone fell to the ground. He was like a deflated balloon that had lost all fighting spirit, and he stood there, unmoving. Linda James was about to throw a tantrum, but she was scared stiff by her husband's actions. "What's wrong?" "Dad had a heart attack and has been admitted into the hospital." It was Finn Taylor who caused it," Frances Larson boomed. Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson were in the house heard those words too. By the time the couple walked out of the house, Francis Larson had already gone into shock and was wobbling unsteadily, falling backward. Finn Taylor rushed forward to support Francis Larson. Slap, but what met Finn Taylor was a slap to the face from his father-in-law. You, the first day you entered our family, you killed Grandpa. Do you want to kill my dad today? It seems like Linda was right, you are here to ruin our family. Over the past 3 years, it had usually been Linda James who had physically and verbally abused Finn Taylor. Although Francis Larson held a similar dislike toward him, he had never gone over the line, much less raise his hand to beat him up. But today, he had done both. He was utterly disappointed in Finn Taylor. Dad, how's Grandpa? There's no point in pointing fingers now. We'd better go to the hospital to visit Grandpa now. Right, let's go to the hospital. Then, they hired a taxi. As for Finn Taylor, Francis Larson had chased him away, so he hadn't even managed to get in the car. He watched the taxi drive off into the distance. Finn Taylor picked up his phone and dialed a number. Jeremy Smith, get to Independence Hospital and save someone. Finn Taylor put away his phone and headed toward Independence Hospital emotionlessly. Joseph Larson has utterly humiliated me. Moreover, he's biased against Yvette Larson's family. Unfortunately, it's true that he can't die just yet. If he had died before today, it would have been fine. Yvette Larson had been in control of the company. If the chairman passed on, the power would naturally be passed to the CEO. But earlier, Joseph Larson had stripped Yvette Larson of the CEO position. As such, he can't afford to die now. Finn Taylor had to keep Old Master alive so that he could apologize to his wife personally and to hand the Larson family over to her. By the time Yvette Larson and her parents arrived at the hospital, Finn Taylor had arrived too. Francis Larson and Linda James were surprised that he had arrived at the same time, but this was not the time to care about such trivial matters. The four of them jogged toward the operation theater on the 3rd floor. When they arrived at the operation theater, Quince Larson balled up his fists and swung them at Yvette Larson. Finn Taylor flew forward to stop Quince Larson's hand midair. What are you trying to do? That should be my question to you. What are you trying to do, you piece of trash? It's you and your family that caused Grandpa to have a heart attack. Quince Larson struggled and tried to break free from Finn Taylor's grip, but he failed to do so. Let go of me. You already angered Grandpa so much that he has to go into surgery. Do you want to beat all of the Larson family members up and admit all of us into the hospital? Francis Larson, look at how your amazing son-in-law is treating my son. A bald, middle-aged man behind Quince Larson questioned Francis Larson in a thunderous voice. It was Franklin Larson. Let go. The moment Yvette Larson spoke up, Finn Taylor let go without hesitation. Second uncle, don't jump to your son's defense. You're not blind, you should have seen clearly why Finn Taylor came to my defense. Your son was the one who started it. Eleanor Larson sneered. You're really uncultured to be shouting at your second uncle. What a useless family. Oh, do you mean that you're very cultured? Then, you'd better come over and greet your uncle and auntie. Also, ask second uncle to greet his elder brother. Stop calling him by his name, it's uncultured. Yvette Larson had already been in a foul mood to begin with. She had done nothing wrong, yet she was being maligned. As such, she would rebut everything she was hit with today. Yvette Larson, you'd better watch your words. The two women were head to head. Just then, the door to the operation theater opened. Out walked several doctors. All of the Larson family rushed up at once. How's Grandpa? Yes, is my dad out of danger? The doctor waved his arm, gesturing for everyone to remain silent. Listen to me, the old master's surgery went well, but he isn't out of danger yet. Our suggestion is to send him to the ICU ward for further observation. You'll need to send someone to stay with the old master throughout the night to watch over him so that you can inform the doctor immediately if something goes wrong. Stay with the old master throughout the night. The Larson family members glanced at each other. It was a chore that nobody wished to take on. Even Franklin Larson and Quince Larson had appeared the most filial up until no backed away. Yvette Larson, since your family is the one who caused this, you guys should send someone. Yvette Larson was about to rebuke them when Finn Taylor stepped forward. Fine, I'll stay with Grandpa tonight. The moment Finn Taylor said these words, everyone stared at him as though he was crazy. Everyone knows that you were the one who landed Joseph Larson in this state, and you're planning on accompanying him throughout the night. You. Franklin Larson disagreed and was about to voice his objections when his son quickly stepped in. He whispered, Dad, just let him do it. It'll naturally be great if Grandpa recovers, we won't have to worry about him then. However, it might not be all that bad if something happens to Grandpa either. I'm the CEO now, and I currently have the highest position apart from Grandpa. Besides, if something happens to Grandpa when under his care, we can use that as an excuse to convince the other elders to chase their family out of the Larson family. Dad, think about it. Franklin Larson came to a sudden realization at his son's words. He turned around and looked at Finn Taylor. Since you were the one who landed Dad in this state, I'm in no place to deny you the chance to make up for it now with your filial piety. All right then, you'll spend the night here watching over Dad. With that, Franklin Larson's family and Eleanor Larson's family took their leave. Only Yvette Larson's family was left outside the operation theater. Finn Taylor, are you stupid? Don't you know that this was a trap? The doctor already said that Grandpa is still in critical condition. If anything happens to Grandpa, it'll be on you. Quince Larson will definitely use the chance to make things difficult for our family. Yvette Larson was intelligent and naturally spotted the trap set out for them. She hadn't expected her husband to fall into this trap. It's all right, you guys can head home. I'll watch over Grandpa well and make sure that nothing will happen to him. By now, Yvette Larson was fuming and didn't want to waste her breath on Finn Taylor. She picked up her bag and turned to leave. Before leaving in a huff, Linda James made sure to jab her son-in-law's head. Finn Taylor, I won't let you off if anything goes wrong with my dad's condition. When they all left, Finn Taylor was left alone in the hospital. Finn Taylor put on a protective gown and entered the ICU ward. The invincible and almighty Joseph Larson was lying on the bed, unconscious. His body was connected to all sorts of machines, and there were problems with almost all of his vital signs. It seemed like his condition was truly serious this time. Finn Taylor didn't believe that he had fallen into such a serious condition naturally. Could someone have been behind this? Finn Taylor was still lost in his thoughts when someone walked in. It was the top doctor in the country, Jeremy Smith. Jeremy Smith gave a respectful and deep bow to Finn Taylor. Master Peregrine. Jeremy Smith was a renowned doctor and was thought of as a miracle worker. He could raise the dead from their graves, but Jeremy Smith knew in his heart that he never would have been able to achieve all that without this young man in front of him. Have a look at him. Jeremy Smith's gaze fell on Joseph Larson. In an instant, his expression changed. Poison. Finn Taylor nodded. It's just like I had thought. Joseph Larson fell gravely ill because of poison. Master Peregrine, although this kind of poison is hard to treat, I have full confidence. No need for that, you just have to treat his heart condition and keep him from dying for now. I have my own use for this poison. He hadn't even found out about who had poisoned Joseph Larson. He wasn't going to let Joseph Larson recover so easily. Of course, Finn Taylor had an idea on who could have poisoned Joseph Larson, but he currently lacked evidence. Yes, Master Peregrine. After about 5 hours of work until the break of dawn, Jeremy Smith finally managed to pull Joseph Larson back from the brink of death. Finn Taylor didn't dare to let his guard down either. After all, he was sure that the Larson family would blame him if anything happened. At about 5 in the morning, Jeremy Smith finally left the hospital after treating Joseph Larson. With that, Finn Taylor heaved a sigh of relief and went out to find an empty bed to sleep in. Ellipsis. Splash. Ice-cold water on Finn Taylor's face jolted him up from his sleep. Finn Taylor squinted his eyes to see a basin in Quince Larson's hands. Behind Quince Larson stood Yvette Larson, Francis Larson, Linda James, Franklin Larson, and Eleanor Larson. Everyone was glaring at him. Yvette Larson, this is how your husband and your entire family treats Grandpa. Taking care of him, the guardian that you guys sent found himself a nice place to sleep instead. Yvette Larson, it was your family that angered Grandpa so badly that he had to be admitted into the hospital. It was only because my dad was magnanimous that this piece of trash got a chance to make up for his mistakes, but look at what he's done. If he slept by Grandpa's side, I wouldn't even have said anything, but Grandpa is still in the ICU while he chose to sleep right here. Great. This is really great. Once Grandpa is out of critical condition, I'll make sure to tell him all about this so that he knows just how filial your family is. Quince Larson's words were getting nastier, but Yvette Larson's family couldn't do anything but tolerate them. After all, it was true that Finn Taylor had done that. Hey, let's go visit Grandpa. Quince Larson flung the basin on the floor. Apart from Yvette Larson's family, the rest of the Larson family headed toward the ICU ward. Slap. Yvette Larson slapped her husband in the face brutally. It had been a long while since she had scolded Finn Taylor because her interactions with him made her realize that he was changing for her sake. She, too, hoped that her husband wouldn't be a good-for-nothing and would be a man who could helm the family. But this time, Finn Taylor had crossed the line. Finn Taylor, didn't I remind you about this before leaving last night? This is a trap that Quince Larson has set up for our family. Grandpa isn't even out of critical condition yet. If anything happens to Grandpa, Quince Larson will put all the blame on our family. Do you think I was joking? Yvette Larson was utterly disappointed, and Francis Larson and Linda James didn't even want to speak to him. All three of them left haggardly with resentment in their hearts. As for Finn Taylor, he sat there, caressing his face. Finn Taylor felt frustrated. I spent the whole night trying to save Joseph Larson, and that was why I ended up sleeping here. It doesn't matter that Quince Larson and the rest don't understand me, but even Yvette Larson has hit me. Just then, Finn Taylor spotted a lunch box at his feet. Huh, Finn Taylor was stunned but quickly opened the lunch box. It was a sandwich. It was a little burnt, but it still tasted delicious. Finn Taylor guessed that Yvette Larson must have made it. Only a pampered princess like her would be capable of making something so unappetizing. But after thinking about how she had woken up early to prepare him a meal even though she had no culinary skills, Finn Taylor decided to forgive her this time. Visiting hours had yet to begin, and there was no way the nurse was going to let all of them enter the ICU ward at once. Wasn't this being irresponsible toward the patient? As Finn Taylor walked over with a bowl in his hand, he saw Quince Larson arguing with a nurse. Seeing Finn Taylor walk over, Quince Larson pointed right at him. He was supposed to watch over the patient, but he didn't. We have reason to suspect that something could have happened to the old master. I demand that you let us in. What right do you have to stop us from entering? Finn Taylor took a huge bite of his sandwich and muttered under his breath, "What's there to see? He's already well and out of critical condition. I guess he's already jumping about inside." Although he said this under his breath, everyone had heard him. In an instant, more than a dozen pairs of eyes turned to glare at him. Finn Taylor, what do you mean? You were the one who angered Grandpa so much that he was admitted. Forget that you're not even concerned about him, but you're going overboard by saying these sarcastic words here. Do you think I won't dare to slap you here? Finn Taylor ignored Quince Larson. He had a strong suspicion that it was him who had poisoned Joseph Larson in the first place. It was disgusting to see him acting like a filial grandson. What's the matter? Why is there such a din? Finally, the doctor arrived. Dr. Williams, you're finally here. Quince Larson immediately rushed up to welcome the doctor. I'm so sorry, Dr. Williams. Our family is just unlucky. Our family tasked the eldest son-in-law from Francis Larson's family to look after Grandpa since he's sick. How were we to know that this piece of trash would be so lazy that he hid outside and fell asleep? We don't even know how Grandpa is doing now, and that's why we want to head in to check on him. But the hospital's guidelines. Dr. Williams nodded. Quince Larson was the Larson Corporation's CEO and had done many business dealings with him in the past. Mr. Larson, this won't be a problem, but we still have to abide by the hospital's guidelines. Choose 5 family members to follow me and only 5. Fiona, get me 5 protective gowns. Everyone from the Larson family rushed to volunteer themselves eagerly. They seemed to be afraid that they would be denounced for having no filial piety if they were too slow in expressing their eagerness. Shut up, all of you. Each family can send one person. It'll be Yvette Larson from the first family, me from the second, Eleanor Larson from the third, and Quinn Larson from the fourth. The last slot, Quince Larson sneered. Piece of trash, you can have it since you were supposed to take care of Grandpa. If anything happens to Grandpa, just wait and see what will happen to you. Earlier on, everyone had eagerly shown their interest in entering the ward to visit the old master, Joseph Larson. But now that Quince Larson had decided on the name list, there was not a single objection. Perhaps they were all hoping for the old master to die as soon as possible so that they could receive their inheritance. Finn Taylor didn't refuse to enter the ward with the rest. He placed his sandwich down, wrapped it up, and placed it in the nurse's hands. Help me take care of it. I still want to eat it later on. Finn Taylor's words attracted many disdainful gazes. A piece of trash will always be a piece of trash. He will never be able to do anything right. How can he still be thinking about eating at this point in time? Quince Larson and Dr. Williams led the way. Finn Taylor walked up to his wife and whispered, "Your sandwich is pretty good. It's delicious." Yvette Larson was in no mood to bother about her husband. She felt as though she was walking to her execution grounds while walking to the ICU ward. What if I see Grandpa in a critical condition? That would mean that my whole family will be thrown into hell. How can Finn Taylor remain so indifferent in the face of that? She didn't even know what to say about him anymore. Under Dr. Williams's lead, they rounded a few corners before finally entering the ICU ward. Then, the sight stunned everyone. Joseph Larson was exercising in the ICU ward. At that moment, Dr. Williams was shocked, Quince Larson was shocked, Eleanor Larson was shocked, and Quinn Larson was shocked. Only Yvette Larson looked at Finn Taylor incredulously. He had already said so. Earlier on, Finn Taylor had said that Grandpa was already out of critical condition and that he could even be jumping around in the ward. Everything he said earlier is now a reality. Oh my goodness, this is really a medical miracle. Mr. Larson, did you know? We actually withheld from you last night that your grandpa had a very serious myocardial infarction. Although the surgery was a success, the after effects could have resulted in him being paralyzed in bed for the rest of his life or even remain in a vegetative state. But now, this is a miracle. A miracle, indeed. Dr. Williams rushed up. Old Master Larson, how are you feeling? Seeing that his grandchildren had come to visit him, he was pleased. But when he saw Finn Taylor, his expression fell. Nonetheless, he didn't flare up. Joseph Larson smiled at Dr. Williams. It's all thanks to you, Dr. Williams. Last night, I felt someone trying to save my life, and he managed to save me at dawn. Now, I'm perfectly fine. Dr. Williams didn't understand what Joseph Larson was talking about and ordered a comprehensive checkup for him. The results rendered even Dr. Williams himself speechless. Joseph Larson had completely recovered from his heart attack, and there was no trace of any heart disease at all. It was common knowledge that heart disease was a chronic condition that couldn't be cured. Even surgery would only delay the symptoms, not cure the root cause. However, it seemed like Joseph Larson had experienced a medical miracle. Quince Larson rushed up to his grandpa. Grandpa, it's great that you're fine now. We're all elated that you're in good health. All the other Larson family members including Eleanor Larson and Quinn Larson quickly went forward to express their concern too. As for Yvette Larson, she was still staring suspiciously at Finn Taylor. Finn Taylor had managed to illustrate Grandpa's condition perfectly. Besides, Grandpa even said that someone had saved him last night. Could that person be Finn Taylor? Yvette Larson couldn't help but ask, do you have medical skills? Medical skills? I've never even been to university. Where would I have learned that? Yvette Larson felt silly for even having asked that question. Medical skills. All the prominent doctors were decorated with fancy titles and had gotten master's degrees or even doctorates. They had trained for years and gone through trials and tribulations to be as proficient as they were now. Besides, Grandpa's case is nothing short of a medical miracle. How could I have suspected that Finn Taylor had saved Grandpa? I allowed my imagination to run wild. Piece of trash, you were just lucky this time. Quince Larson told Finn Taylor off before turning to face his cousin. Yvette Larson, I'm thinking of organizing a grand party to celebrate Grandpa's recovery. Will your family be willing to sponsor it? Grandpa was everyone's grandpa. It wasn't that Yvette Larson was reluctant to fork out money for the party, but it was ridiculous for her family to fork out the entire cost. Quince Larson knew that her family was the poorest amongst the four families. He was clearly trying to force them into a corner. What's wrong, Yvette Larson? It was your family that forced Grandpa to be admitted in the first place, and that piece of trash wasn't even willing to take care of Grandpa. He slept soundly outside instead. Now, you're not even willing to organize a party to celebrate Grandpa's recovery. Yvette Larson, I never thought that your family was so unfilial. Eleanor Larson was standing by the side tutted. Sigh, how did Uncle raise you? Yvette Larson, is your entire family so unfilial? Forget it if you're unwilling. Our family will pay for it, we'll just take it as though Grandpa never had family like you. Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson were in perfect harmony as they tried to chase Yvette Larson's family out of the Larson family. Yvette Larson felt aggrieved and wanted to rebuke them, but her husband stopped her from doing so. Sure, we have some responsibility for Grandpa's illness. We'll pay for it. All right, Yvette Larson, your husband agreed to it. You won't go back on your word, will you? What else could Yvette Larson say now that Finn Taylor had already agreed? She had no choice but to agree as well. When Frances Larson and Linda James learned about the matter, they were furious. Linda James slammed the table and shouted, Finn Taylor, do you really think you're part of our family now? Who gave you the right to make decisions for our family? Since you agreed, why don't you tell us where the money is going to come from? We don't have that much money. Finn Taylor remained silent. Linda James felt her blood boiling but was helpless. The date for Old Master Larson's party had been set for the 8th of next month. Since he wasn't the one paying for the party, Quince Larson had generously sent invitations out to anyone who was vaguely related to the Larson family. Even distant acquaintances they had only met once in their lives received invitations from the Larson family. In the end, they had invited more than 1,500 people. When Linda James learned of it, she lashed out at Finn Taylor. Nevertheless, he remained silent. Finn Taylor sat at the gate, smoking. At that moment, Yvette Larson walked over. He quickly stubbed his cigarette on the ground. "Wow, how nice. You're not smoking because I'm here. Tell me, why did you agree to Quince Larson's request?" Finn Taylor smiled. "I didn't want to hear his nagging. Where's the money coming from? Do you remember that the late old master gave me a sum of money when we got married?" Now that he mentioned it, Yvette Larson had a hazy memory of it. At that time, not a single person in the Larson family thought well of Finn Taylor when they had first gotten married. Only Hugo Larson had given Finn Taylor some money because he had been the one who arranged this marriage to begin with. Yvette Larson didn't ask about how much he had received. Of course, she didn't want to know either. It was true that she had been rather cold and indifferent toward Finn Taylor over the past few years. Since it was the old master who had given him that sum of money, she had no right to ask for it. "Is it enough? I guess." Finn Taylor didn't go into any specifics. "All right, I'll tell Mom about the money. She's just uneasy that we're being bullied by the second branch of the family. Don't mind her. It's all right." Finn Taylor smiled bitterly when Yvette Larson left. "Yvette Larson's attitude toward me has probably improved again after seeing how pitiful I've been recently and how I took the blame for her yet again." Ellipsis. 7 days flew by. It was the day of Joseph Larson's party. Quince Larson had already found a spot for himself at the entrance of All Stars Hotel bright and early to welcome the guests. Every guest walked up to present their gifts. CEO Eugene Kelly from the Winsdale Corporation wishes the old master a long life. Here's a violin. CEO Sam Schubert from Barrowcloud Corporation wishes the old master a long life. Here's a 1,000-year-old ginseng. CEO Martin Kleina from Gowins Corporation wishes the old master a long life and good health. Here's a precious and rare herb. Ellipsis. The prices of all these gifts from the guests were sky high. Quince Larson broke out into a wide smile as he listened to the list of gifts. He felt that these gifts all belonged to him. The first family of the Larson family, Francis Larson's son-in-law, Yvette Larson's husband, Finn Taylor wishes Grandpa a long life and good health. Here's an incense burner. A discordant sound suddenly sounded out. More than 100 pairs of eyes outside the All Stars Hotel turned to the entrance. They saw the useless son-in-law of the Larson family, Finn Taylor, holding an incense burner in his hand, making his way into the hotel lobby. Quince Larson was infuriated when he saw it. He rushed up and shouted, "Piece of trash, stop right there. Are you serious? Grandpa just recovered from a serious illness, and we're organizing this party to celebrate his recovery. Everyone in San Francisco has gathered here to wish Grandpa well. As a son-in-law of the Larson family, how could you present him with such a measly incense burner? What do you mean by this?" As Quince Larson was berating Finn Taylor, Yvette Larson, Eleanor Larson, and the rest of the Larson family had gathered around. Everyone glared at Finn Taylor, thinking that he was doing this on purpose. "Yvette Larson, if you don't want to pay for Grandpa's party, you can just let us know. Eleanor Larson already offered for the second, third, and fourth branches to pay for it if your family doesn't want to. You already agreed to it, and we've already welcomed so many guests. What are you trying to do by giving Grandpa a broken incense burner?" Yvette Larson felt embarrassed. "Finn Taylor, what's up with you? Didn't I give you $15,000 to buy Grandpa's present? Finn Taylor alone had paid for the party." Yvette Larson felt bad about that. As such, she had given him $15,000, asking him to get a present. Whatever remained would be his. She had never expected Finn Taylor to buy such a lousy present with $15,000. "That's right, tell me about it. This is the present I got for Grandpa. I only spent $50 on it." I think the seller was a fool. Finn Taylor was pleased with himself, but his wife landed a slap on his face. "Finn Taylor, I know that you don't have much money and that you must have felt the pinch this time, but I gave you $15,000. Don't you think you're going overboard by only spending $50 on Grandpa's present? Finn Taylor, I'm so disappointed in you." Having said her piece, Yvette Larson turned to take her leave, not giving her husband any time to explain himself. Finn Taylor put the incense down and chased after her. Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson's departure didn't cause much of an uproar to the party. When the Larson family's old master, Joseph Larson, found out that Finn Taylor had given him a broken incense burner, he was so furious that he chased Francis Larson and Linda James away from the main table. "Brother Joseph, Don't get upset. Just then, a thick and resonant voice sounded out. Everyone turned to look in the direction of the voice, only to see an old man with long, white hair and a baby face. Jacob Jensen, you're here too. Joseph Larsen became emotional upon seeing the old man and personally welcomed him. This was the first time he had done so amongst all his guests. This guest was indeed worthy of Joseph Larsen's actions. Jacob Jensen was a legendary figure in the whole country. He had once found a precious ancient relic. Of course, I had to come and visit you now that you're out of the hospital. I want to see when you're going to die. This was how Jacob Jensen and Joseph Larsen communicated. Nobody else dared to speak to the both of them in this way. It would be no different from seeking death. Come on, the main table is here. Joseph Larsen invited his old friend to the main table. Just then, Jacob Jensen's gaze landed on the incense burner in the corner. Wait, Jacob Jensen yelped out in surprise before rushing over. He examined it closely and even put on his white gloves before picking the incense burner up. I must say, Jacob, your workaholic nature is showing up again. Some insensible relative of mine gave it to me. Don't you think he's being shameless by giving me such a stupid incense burner after I was finally discharged from the hospital after a serious bout of illness? Jacob Jensen ignored his friend, focusing all his energy on the incense burner. His strange behavior naturally attracted a lot of attention. Everyone in the Larsen family was starting to whisper amongst themselves. Eleanor Larsen walked up to her cousin and muttered in a low voice, "Could something be wrong? Jacob Jensen is examining it so meticulously. Could that incense burner really be a treasure?" Quince Larsen was on tenterhooks. Nonetheless, he acted calm and collected. "That's impossible. That piece of trash only spent $300 on this, so how valuable could it be? Mr. Jensen is too much of a workaholic, and that's why he thinks that it could be a treasure even though it's obvious that it's just a broken incense burner." Quince Larsen's words comforted Eleanor Larsen, but the eyes of all those present in All Stars Hotel were fixated on the incense burner. Then, the topic naturally drifted to Finn Taylor. When they learned that it was the infamous, good-for-nothing matrilocal son-in-law who had given the old master this gift, it all seemed too clear to them. Initially, they had been wondering if they would see the birth of a treasure. But now, the possibility of that seemed close to zero. After what seemed like an eternity, Jacob Jensen finally looked up and took a deep breath. "Joseph, do you know the story behind Kalen Hadley?" Kalen Hadley, in the 10th century, the Toltec army often invaded the Mayan territories. Kalen Hadley was thus ordered to invade Toltec territories. At that time, the Toltec army used a strategy termed as end of heaven and earth. Unfortunately, the Mayan army at that time was full of cowards. In the end, Kalen Hadley set out alone to reconnoiter the land. Along that journey, he was almost fatally injured. Thankfully, he survived. He rode through the night, enduring his injury, and arrived at a temple named Tulum. With that, Jacob Jensen walked forward and placed the incense burner in front of Joseph Larsen. Everyone turned their eyes to the pair, only to see the words, "End of Heaven and Earth," on the front of the incense burner and "Tulum" on the back. The design, pattern, and material of this incense burner are characteristic of the post-classical Mayan period. With these 8 words, it's almost certain that this incense burner is associated with Kalen Hadley. This incense burner is worth at least $15 million. Brother Joseph, didn't you say that a relative gave you this incense burner? Is he around? I'd like to have a chat with him. At the mention of $15 million, the entire Larsen family and everyone in All Stars Hotel fell silent. Quince Larsen and Eleanor Larsen's faces flushed red. However, it wasn't just the two of them. Even Joseph Larsen's expression had fallen. "Brother Jacob, don't joke around with me. How much could a broken incense burner like that cost? If you don't believe me, you can sell it to me. I won't take advantage of you. I'll give you $15 million for it." Jacob Jensen was full of confidence. It seemed like $15 million was still a conservative estimate. "Brother Joseph, which one of your relatives gave this to you? He has such a good eye. Don't keep him to yourself, let me meet him too." Joseph Larsen was stuck between a rock and a hard place, but he had no choice but to be honest. "Brother Jacob, I've told you about our family's matrilocal son-in-law, Finn Taylor. He was the one who caused me to be admitted to the hospital this time, and he was also the one who brought this incense burner here. I thought that it was a terrible gift, so I chased him away. I think it was no more than a coincidence." Quince Larsen added on from the side, "That's right. How could that piece of trash know anything about antiques? He was just lucky." Jacob Jensen smiled but remained silent. There is no such thing as luck in this business. Precious items are snatched the moment they go up for sale. If Finn Taylor managed to see the value in this incense burner, it means that he understood its true value. However, I don't wish to waste my breath anymore. Joseph is clearly trying to find himself an excuse. Since that's the case, there is no need to help him out either. Ellipsis. Outside All Stars Hotel, Finn Taylor finally caught up with his spouse. Yvette, listen to me. What do you have to say? Don't you just want that $15,000? Do you think that it doesn't matter what we give since we'll never be able to match up to Quince Larson? This isn't even the first time. Finn Taylor sighed. That's not what I thought about. I also wanted to buy something expensive, but I saw someone holding a flea market when I got there. That incense burner caught my eye immediately. It's Kaylin Hadley's. It's really valuable. Lies. Continue cheating me with your lies. I'm not lying. Everything I said is the truth. I don't want to talk to you. Please go away. Yvette Larson stretched her arm out to hail a taxi. Then, she got in the taxi and left. Finn Taylor was left standing there alone. Sigh. Finn Taylor sighed and retrieved a cigarette from his pocket. He searched his pocket. I forgot to bring a lighter out. Fuck. When a person is down, they are truly down. I can't even smoke a cigarette. Sigh. I have to think of a way to coax you. Oh right, your birthday is on the 20th. I have an idea. The news of the end of heaven and earth incense burner appearing at Joseph Larson's party made rounds around San Francisco. But nobody believed that Finn Taylor truly had the ability to spot valuable antiques. Everyone felt that he had simply been lucky. After all, even a broken clock is right twice a day. A good-for-nothing matrilocal son-in-law was still a good-for-nothing matrilocal son-in-law at the end of the day. Because Joseph Larson had his pride and refused to admit to his mistake, Frances Larson and Linda James hadn't been invited back to the main table till the very end. As such, Frances Larson and Linda James vented their anger on their son-in-law. They both felt that it was Finn Taylor's gifting of the end of heaven and earth incense burner that had ruined the night for their family. Even Yvette Larson had been cold toward him and was unwilling to talk to him over the past few days. At the same time, Yvette Larson was constantly being bothered by her best friend, Clarine Landon. When Clarine Landon woke up in the middle of the night, she would call Yvette Larson, saying that she was thinking of that violinist. She had even gone to the extent of visiting more than a dozen renowned music colleges, perusing through thousands of photos of violinists. Still, she hadn't found the violinist she was looking for. Because of that, there was an itch in Clarine Landon's heart. Of course, she wasn't expecting Yvette Larson to help her out. She simply wanted to vent her emotions, but this caused Yvette Larson's sleep quality to deteriorate drastically. Due to this, Yvette became even grumpier and naturally colder toward her spouse. But that day, a shocking piece of news spread across San Francisco. Someone had rented the Peak of Pacific Heights. Nobody was allowed on Pacific Heights' peak on the 20th because a mysterious man had rented it to celebrate his wife's birthday. Pacific Heights was the most famous site in the whole of San Francisco. The neighborhood of Pacific Heights was also the most affluent region in San Francisco. The wealthy families living in Pacific Heights enjoyed taking a stroll to the peak after dinner, but even they wouldn't be allowed up on the peak on the 20th. Who had spent such a huge fortune to do so? Nobody knew. Eleanor Larson walked into her best friend's office and sat herself down on the sofa. Yvette Larson, isn't the 20th your birthday? Yvette Larson was stunned. What is she trying to do this time? Haven't you heard the news? Someone has rented the whole peak of Pacific Heights to celebrate his wife's birthday. Do you think that person could be Finn Taylor since your birthday is on the 20th too? The door was pushed open yet again, and Quince Larson walked in. Eleanor, you know that the peak of Pacific Heights can't be rented by just anybody. One has to be both rich and famous. As for Finn Taylor, he is neither, he's nothing but a piece of trash. Eleanor Larson sneered. I say, Yvette Larson, you both have birthdays on the 20th. That person gets to celebrate hers on the peak of Pacific Heights, while you, hee. Yvette Larson was fuming. The pair in front of her was slacking off and had specially come to her office just to tell her about this. Eleanor Larson, get out. You're acting as though you had the chance to celebrate your birthday at the peak of Pacific Heights. Well, it's true I'm not that lucky. But at the very least, I'm not married to a good-for-nothing matrilocal son-in-law. I can't afford to be embarrassed like that. You humiliated the Larson family, yet you still have the cheek to say that. Yvette Larson had to resist the urge to punch someone. Just then, Quince Larson cut in. Yvette Larson, how's your collaboration with Xander Corporation going? I think it's progressing rather slowly. You know how important it is to the Larson family, so I'm sure you know that you could be kicked out of the deputy CEO position if you aren't capable. I think that Eleanor is more suitable for the position than you. Yvette Larson clenched her jaw tightly. I just ran into some trouble, I'll fix it. What happened? Nothing much, it's just that some people are stirring up trouble. I can resolve the problem. Some people? Who are those people who dare to go against the Larson family of San Francisco? Have you investigated who's backing them? Not yet, I'm still on it. Not yet. Yvette Larson, do you think the company is paying you a salary for nothing? If you aren't capable, you'd better resign from your job. The moment Quince Larson said his piece, he left in a huff, slamming the door behind him. At the same time, Eleanor Larson made a face. Yvette Larson, this project is the only leverage you have against the Larson family. Just wait and see how Grandpa deals with you if you screw this project up. With that, Eleanor Larson left with a hum. Yvette Larson shoved all the documents on her table to the ground. She was on the verge of tears. What right do they have? We are all children of the Larson family, so why have I always been looked down on and bullied ever since I was young? I finally endured everything to be able to helm a project myself, and yet, I'm being belittled by some rogues. Also, why was I forced to marry Finn Taylor? On what grounds? What was Old Master even thinking? Why had he forced me to marry him? Yvette Larson gazed at the silver bracelet on her wrist. The late Old Master had given it to her on the day of her wedding. He had told her that she was the luckiest in the entire Larson family. But Yvette Larson couldn't understand how she was lucky. Ever since she had gotten married, all she had done was be at the beck and call of others. Ellipsis. Inside Starbucks, Finn Taylor took a sip of his latte and glanced at Alexander Scott, who was seated in front of him. You settled the matter pretty well. Master Peregrine, it was nothing. All right, you can leave. Of course, Finn Taylor was the one who had rented the peak of Pacific Heights. He hadn't appeared personally, instead, he had sent Alexander Scott in his place. Alexander Scott was the head of Seattle's Scott family and one of Peregrine Hall's 4 guardians. Finn Taylor picked up his phone and dialed a number. Ellipsis. Clarine Landon sat on her bed, throwing her bolster and plush toys onto the ground. Her blood was boiling. She had gotten someone to look into a violinist who was about the same age as her, but they had eventually confirmed that he had been abroad on a tour at that time. He was not the one she was looking for. Clarine Landon whined as she looked up at the sky. Why is it so difficult to find the person I've fallen for? Just then, her phone rang. Clarine Landon picked it up and saw the display, piece of trash. She picked up and started yelling at him. You piece of trash, are you courting death? I'm your wife's best friend. I'm guessing that you must be interested in me, but I'm telling you now that there's no way it's ever going to happen. Finn Taylor felt as though his eardrum was about to burst. I think you're delusional. I'm calling you to ask you for a favor. Scram, I have no time for you. With that, Clarine Landon was about to end the call. Don't be in such a hurry to hang up. Don't you want to meet that violinist? Violinist, you know him, I found him, but I need you to do me a favor. Clarine Landon was overwhelmed with emotions. As long as you let me meet my violinist, I'll be willing to help you out 10 times, let alone 1. All right, there will be a grand birthday party at the peak of Pacific Heights on the 20th. Bring Yvette there, and you'll be able to meet that violinist. Yvette, what does she have to do with this? You don't have to know about that. It's up to you whether you get to meet that violinist. With that, Finn Taylor ended the call. After Finn Taylor ended the call, Clarine Landon's mind wandered back to that violinist once again. She was deep in contemplation. In the end, she gritted her teeth and sent him a message. It contained a single word, okay. Time flew by, and the 20th was finally here. The moment Yvette Larson arrived at the office, Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson once again walked into her office on purpose. Oh, the birthday girl is at work today. I thought you would go to the peak of Pacific Heights. Eleanor, do you think that any random Tom, Dick, or Harry can go to the peak of Pacific Heights? She shouldn't even dream of doing that in this lifetime. You can't be too sure about that. Didn't someone rent the whole peak of Pacific Heights to celebrate his wife's birthday today? I think Finn Taylor isn't bad. I'm sure he's the one who rented the peak. Right, I think so too. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. What followed was their thunderous laughter. Their laughter sounded evil, and it annoyed Yvette Larson even more. Can you both shut up and get out? Why, it's true that you got married to a good-for-nothing, who has embarrassed the Larson family. Why can't I talk about it? Eleanor Larson refused to back down, but Quince Larson changed the topic. Yvette Larson, it's been so many days. Have you settled those rogues? If you're not capable, you'd better submit your resignation letter to me. Yvette Larson was frustrated. Who cares about that? Actually, it doesn't have that great of an impact on the whole project's progress anyway. But ever since Quince Larson became the CEO again, he has refused to let the matter go. Now, he's even forcing me to resign from my position because of such a small matter. It seems like he can no longer stand still. Quince Larson, you've already reminded me about this 300 times. There's no need for you to remind me about it every day. I'll definitely get it done within the week, otherwise, I'll leave. Yvette Larson wasn't to be trifled with. She was done tolerating all the bullying. It was nothing more than a few rogues. She believed that she would be able to handle them. All right, you said so yourself. I didn't force you into it, Eleanor can be our witness. The reason why Quince had repeatedly reminded her about the matter was simply to provoke her. Now, he had achieved his goal. Quince Larson dared to stake his life to bet that Yvette Larson would never be able to resolve the matter. This was because he was involved in the matter. This project was a collaboration between the Larson family of San Francisco and the Sullivan family of New York. Leaving the Larson family aside, there was no way anyone would dare to provoke or offend New York's Sullivan family no matter how bold they were. They only dared to do so because of the support from the Fleming family of San Francisco. Why would the Fleming family do something that wouldn't benefit them in any way when they bore no grudges against the Sullivan family? Well, this all had to do with the secret agreement Quince Larson had gotten into with Seth Fleming. Seth Fleming had agreed to make as much trouble as possible for Yvette Larson in order to help Quince Larson. As for Quince Larson, he would think of a way to send Yvette Larson to his bed. There were throngs of people waiting to bed such a legendary beauty, and that was also why Yvette Larson's wedding to Finn Taylor had caused such an uproar in San Francisco. They were nothing more than a second-tier family without much influence. Now that they had achieved their goals and had mocked Yvette Larson, Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson took their leave. Yvette Larson was left alone in the office in a foul mood. She flung the pen in her hand onto the ground, causing it to shatter into pieces in an attempt to vent her dissatisfaction. At that moment, her office door opened once again. "Get out." Yvette Larson didn't even look up before demanding that person to leave. "Why are you so angry? Who provoked you?" That visitor didn't leave, instead, they walked over. Looking up, Yvette Larson realized that it was her best friend, Clarine Landon. Sigh, who else could it be? Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson were in such unison to try to provoke me. I let my tongue run loose earlier, and I'm starting to regret it a little now. Sigh, I thought that something else happened. Don't think about work for today, our birthday girl must be in her best state today. Take a look at the makeup set I got you. Come on, try it on. Yvette Larson opened the gift from her best friend, her eyes twinkling. They were a pair of Gucci sunglasses, Dior lipstick, and Givenchy perfume. Ellipsis. These were all items in Yvette Larson's shopping cart. Clarine Landon, are you mad? Why did you buy so many things? Haha, as long as you like them. Clarine Landon felt a little guilty while saying that. She hadn't been the one to buy these things. Before she left the house earlier this morning, someone had left this gift box at her door, instructing her to hand it over to her best friend. She had wanted to ask more about it, but that person had already left. Clarine Landon hadn't thought much about it and simply brought the gift box over. But now that it had been opened, it wasn't just Yvette Larson who had been stunned. Even she had been dumbfounded. It's great, which woman didn't like being pretty? With so many new cosmetics, Yvette Larson quickly started putting on makeup in a hurry. In reality, it had been no other than Finn Taylor who had given her all these presents. Finn Taylor had noticed these items lying in his wife's cart for almost half a year, but she had been reluctant to check them out. This time, he finally had the chance to gift them to his wife through her best friend with her birthday as an excuse. Are you done with your makeup? If you are, I'll bring you somewhere. Clarine Landon hadn't forgotten about her important mission of the day, bring Yvette Larson to the peak of Pacific Heights. However, she was unclear about how they would enter the peak since it had already been rented for the day, nor did she have any idea about why Finn Taylor had asked her to bring her best friend over. But she wanted to meet that violinist. Today was an important day in San Francisco. The younger generation in San Francisco was waiting to see who had rented the peak of Pacific Heights. As such, all of the rooms on the higher floors of hotels near Pacific Heights were fully reserved. Countless people had prepared telescopes, hoping to be able to catch a glimpse of what was going on at the peak of Pacific Heights. Brother, can we set off now? Eleanor Larson walked up to her cousin and muttered in a low voice. It's about time. Eleanor, he's a prominent figure. You have to watch your words. Brother, you're really amazing. You even know people from the Scott family. Ha ha ha, of course. Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson were heading to the Pacific Heights neighborhood. Quince Larson was confused about why he had suddenly become friends with such a prominent figure from the Scott family of Seattle while having a drink at Starbucks a few days earlier. Then, Scott had even agreed to take him up to the Pacific Heights neighborhood on the 20th to understand the situation at the peak. As compared to a hotel near Pacific Heights, it was obvious that the view from the Pacific Heights neighborhood would be clearer. Quince Larson was delighted and naturally agreed without any hesitation. What he did not know was that even this was part of Finn Taylor's plan. It was Finn Taylor who had asked Alexander Scott to rent the peak of Pacific Heights. It was also him who had gotten Alexander to allow Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson to visit the Pacific Heights neighborhood. Of course, it was also him who had asked Clarine Landon to bring her best friend to the peak of Pacific Heights. As for why the other young masters of the prominent families in San Francisco were able to secure rooms on high floors in the hotels near Pacific Heights, it was also Finn Taylor who had asked Hunter Sullivan to make sure of it. None of the rooms had been reserved by anyone else. It was as though they were specially waiting for them. As for Logan Yates, his job was even more crucial. He had to film the whole event using a drone. If anything went wrong, he would be done for. If anyone else knew about Logan Yates, the head of Chicago's Yates family, doing such a job, their jaws would probably drop. However, this was an order from Master Peregrine. There was no way Logan Yates would dare to refuse it. Besides, the four Guardians had recently learned of a new piece of news. In the past, the four Guardians had chosen to serve Finn Taylor because the young master Timothy Taylor or Finn Taylor had gotten into a fight with the second young master, Donovan Taylor. They needed to make a decision between the two of them. They felt that Finn Taylor had a higher chance of winning, and that was why they had chosen to support him. But recently, Jeremy Smith had unwittingly revealed a secret while treating Alexander Scott's sister, Phoebe Scott, at the Scott family's house. Finn Taylor wasn't as simple as the four Guardians imagined him to be. The four Guardians had thought that he simply had many capable people under him, such as Zane Yeller and Jeremy Smith. However, Jeremy Smith threw a question back at them: why were they so obedient to Finn Taylor? They weren't part of Peregrine Hall and had no need to do so. This question stunned all four Guardians. In the end, Jeremy Smith revealed a secret: 30% of his miraculous medical skills was passed down from his family, while the other 70% was from Finn Taylor. Jeremy Smith's words were like a lightning bolt out of the blue. It was only then that the four Guardians realized how extraordinary Finn Taylor was. It turned out that he didn't just have capable people supporting him, but he was also extremely capable himself. Whether it was martial arts skills or medical skills, he was out of this world. Otherwise, there would be no way people like Jeremy Smith and Zane Yeller would have been willing to listen to him. It wasn't because he was incapable that he didn't show his skills. It was just that there was no need for him to get personally involved in these trivial matters. At the thought of this, the four Guardians gained a deeper respect for Finn Taylor. Ellipsis. Wow, our Miss Yvette is such a gorgeous lady, Clarine Landon exclaimed by the side as her best friend put on the last touches of her makeup. Clarine Landon was a beauty as well, but she knew that she still couldn't compare to her best friend. Ha ha ha, don't kid me. Come on, I'll bring you somewhere. Where are we going? You'll find out once we get there. The sun was starting to set, and the sky was getting dark. Clarine Landon's mission was about to begin. She walked toward Pacific Heights with Yvette Larson in tow. Why are we going to Pacific Heights? Just follow me, you'll know when we get there. As they approached Pacific Heights, a young and gentle lady walked out. She smiled at Yvette Larson. You must be Miss Yvette Larson. Yvette Larson was confused but nodded. Please follow me. While Yvette Larson was still hesitating, Clarine Landon had already dragged her along. Along the way, the duo continued asking that young lady where they were headed from time to time. If they had known of that young lady's identity, they would probably have been at a loss for words. She was Phoebe Scott, the younger sister of the Scott family's head Alexander Scott. As the young lady led the way, Yvette Larson felt that something was amiss. Miss, we seem to be headed to the peak. Are we on the wrong path? No, you two will understand once we get there. Ellipsis. After some time, the trio finally reached the final step that brought them up to the peak of Pacific Heights. The very moment Yvette Larson stepped up onto the peak, rainbow-colored neon lights started flashing across the whole Pacific Heights. Across the sky, countless drones were flashing with neon lights. They read, "I love you, Yvette Larson." The moment Yvette Larson saw this, her eyes reddened. The lights then flashed again, and they now read, "Happy birthday." Yvette Larson was stunned. It felt like a dream. All the lights were focused on her alone. A man dressed in a tuxedo had his back facing Yvette Larson. Then, the sounds of a violin sounded. It was that man in a tuxedo who was playing the violin. Clarine Landon felt as though she had been struck by lightning. My violinist, I've finally found you. He played only one song. That man in a tuxedo then slowly walked toward Yvette Larson, allowing everyone a clear view of him. It was Finn Taylor. Tonight's birthday party had just begun. Using Pacific Heights as a background, the countless drones created a massive light painting for Yvette Larson. She had already burst into tears a long time ago. These were tears of joy. Clarine Landon, who was standing by the side, knew that her dreams had been crushed the moment she saw Finn Taylor. Why are you the violinist that I can't forget? Boom, boom, boom. A ring of fireworks erupted around Pacific Heights in synchrony. They formed a giant image in the sky, and they looked magnificent in the vast sky. The whole of San Francisco was celebrating this moment. In fact, it wasn't just San Francisco. In the whole state of California and even outside the state, people were letting off fireworks right at this very moment. Phoebe Scott reached out and pulled Clarine Landon away. The peak of Pacific Heights belonged to Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson alone. It would be inappropriate for them to remain here for any longer. Finn Taylor stretched his hands out, and his wife walked up slowly. When Yvette Larson placed her hand on her spouse, they looked just like princes and princesses seen in fairy tales. Happy birthday. They were two simple words, but Yvette Larson was so moved that she allowed Finn Taylor to hug her. This was the first time in 3 years that Yvette Larson had ever hugged her spouse. She was grateful to him for giving her such a huge surprise. It was you. Yes, it was me. Did you know that I've always been blaming you? All couples fight, but they all make up eventually. Ellipsis. Everyone in the nearby hotels in the Pacific Heights neighborhood had witnessed this scene on the peak of Pacific Heights. But none of them had seen the faces clearly, much less think of Yvette Larson. All they had seen were the countless flashing lights and fireworks. Eleanor Larson was terribly envious at this sight. She looked at herself again and thought about what the Larson family had. She had to rely on Quince Larson to even have some status and position. She couldn't help but feel angry. She turned her gaze to Alexander Scott. Pulling the collar of her shirt down, she walked toward him while swaying her hips. Wait for next part.